As of now, cost management. We have started in our last session the project cost management, where we had covered, I think, first three process group. Here the main intention is basically plan cost, estimate cost, determine budget, and then controlling cost. Okay, first three are in planning process group. So we do planning our budget wise activity for the process, and in monitoring and control group we always do control cost, and this is almost daily basis if not hourly basis, because as a project manager controlling cost is what we do at actuals. And how does we get cost derives? We have a scope, schedule, and attached resources. These three things devise a cost to me. So when I say these many tasks has to be done by these many resources within these many time, within these many days, and that gives rise to a cost. So how does we normally calculate cost? Man, material, machine allocated to project per given day, per given hour, depending upon your organizational quality processes, we calculate the cost. So how many days we are going to use the resources, and how are the resources coefficient in terms of their cost linked to your project, and so on and so forth. That's how we normally reduce the cost. We want to have a look at a couple of good methodologies, the way we normally define cost, the way we normally understand how do you plan cost, how do you estimate cost, and how do you determine a budget. First, cost planning is again part of the integration planning area, where we normally consider all the contracts, including the agreement, which are kind of penalizing agreement if we delay that, if we delay this, and then you have to pay so much fine, and so on and so forth. But overall, the inputs are project charters, schedule management plan, risk management plan, and EEFs and OPS. So this makes our input for plan cost management. So basic cost management planning based on the charter, the agreement, on the schedule management plan and risk management plan. Schedule management plan also includes resource names, resources attached, or resources devoted to your project, part-time, full-time, and all those type of different engagements we have. Those gets reflected accordingly on your cost management plan. The tools and technique, we can use expert judgment, data analysis, and meeting. Expert judgment, as we have seen, we have something called financial controllers to help us out in navigating through the really cryptic financial calculations here. There are various calculations here we're going to see in a couple of slides, where we'll understand what is project start cost, what is project plan value, what is project actual cost at this moment, what is the plan cost based on the actual cost, and so on and so forth. So you're going to understand all this terminology, and this is what the data analysis is all about. You keep analyzing cost day after day, hours after hours, so that you can control the project cost within the best possible limits available by your management. Again, the project can be cost at around $10 million. That's what we want to get from the client. But at actuals, we need to understand how am I going to what type of cost do I have in terms of my project allocation, because quite a few of that cost parts are allocated to organizational processes like sales management, which is not burden on your project, like overall PMOs, which is not burden on your project, like overall brand building, brand marketing and everything, which is not actually built to your project, the resource management, which is also external to your project, the procurement management, which is also external to your project. So there are lots of departments which work with you as an external to your entity. So their cost will not basically get added to your kitty. But whatever you have been allocated in terms of human resources, man, material, machine, and this way we normally calculate our cost based on how we are utilizing it, till what time, from what time, and this gives a schedule and a related resource cost to us on almost daily basis. So in many of the organizations, the resources are billed at a flat rate. So if you get a senior or junior resource, it hardly matters. But of course, yes, senior resources are not that available. within your organization. So you might get mid-size or junior-size resources always. But that's the scenario, right? In some organizations, even you have resource cost allocated with the grades. So if you get a senior resources, the costs will be higher and so on and so forth. Okay. And then of course, I have different meetings with resource management to capture all these resources, man, material, machine. Man are basically human resources. Materials are basically the raw materials, whatever I required. Even this includes third-party components like biometrics, the software cost and everything. And then machines, this includes all the desktop, laptops, office space, desk space, this machine, that machine, and all this kind of scenario. Okay, so these like kind of things we take it as an input to plan our cost management. And of course, the output is cost management plan. Then estimate cost. Now, as we've seen earlier, we do some estimation in terms of how to schedule a particular task. There are 4 types of estimation which are suggested by PMI: analogous, parametrics, bottom-ups, and 3-point. And on top of that, we have other 2 called line of code and function point estimation. So we're going to learn that also in this knowledge area. Might be a couple of slides afterwards, where we will decide for a given task, for a given resource, how much time he or she or will be actually consumed to get these things developed. And based on that, we normally schedule our task. So when you schedule this task, scope, schedule, resources gives me an exact cost, what I'm going to incur for a given task, given group of tasks, a given sprint, number of sprint, and so on and so forth. So this way, I normally keep calculating my cost on day in, day out. Now, our project management softwares are the best advanced calculators for such scenarios. Here, we normally include all the resource names, all the schedules, all the scope baselines and scopes, so that we know what type of cost I'm incurring. Even I can normally calculate how much cost I'm spending as of today in terms of 7th June 2022. And this is actually the best part of the project management. You get to understand these cost lines so that we can actually manage the project on cost to cost basis, in terms of we can negotiate with our resource management what type of cost we are looking for. If it's a strategic project, then I might get the resources at the best possible rates. And again, these type of negotiations are done whenever you are going, whenever you move to the program management or the higher ups chairs, and there you can negotiate with resource management. Give me 10 resources at this flat cost and all those things. But yeah, keep those things for later. But right now, what we are trying to do, we are just trying to estimate the cost. So to estimate cost, we have cost management plan, we have quality management plan. This is a new inclusion here because we normally follow the quality policies and procedure designated by the organizations we work in. And that organization guides us on what type of templatization I can use, what type of costing I'm looking at in terms of how to basically get this project plan cost, or what I can say, additional cost padding or various reserve which we can use. That's we're going to see in a couple of minutes here. We try to basically build a cost estimate, and these cost estimates are followed throughout our project. And these cost estimate are normally planned according to the S curve. We'll see what is the S curve and how this S curve is managed as well. Now, it's a normal guideline that whatever estimation methodology or whatever estimating process you choose, you are normally strict with one, because otherwise the estimations coming from different processes can be a bit different. So that scenario, your baseline, if that varies, it's difficult to track the project on a single estimating process group. That's why we normally keep a estimating process group constant. Okay, and then there are various other things which help us out even within the organizations. We have something called knowledge management, right? The knowledge archival, where we normally try to understand if we have done the similar project earlier in our organizations, who managed that, how he or she managed, what is the result, was it successful, unsuccessful, what I need to learn from there, and so on and so forth. So we pile up on our old knowledge and make sure whatever we are doing as far as the planning, we don't fall on the same, unsuccessful ladder. So we try to steer away from all unsuccessful factors and try to build our success on that. And yes, we do our cost review as a project manager, as a person. I do almost every hour, if not every day, but at least, within our organizations, we have something called sprint review, which is predominantly a cost review, where we try to understand how the resources costs are coming up. Even we work in an agile model, here I need to understand the flexibility cost needs to be shared across, means the development partner as well as client. So for such processes, I need to make sure I am not burdened with all type of estimation costs, or the change request cost or flexibility cost, all in all. So that way also, there's a bit of negotiations always goes on in terms of our scrum meet or project review meet. That is a predominantly a cost meet, or cost review meet. And that's why we basically progressively do review our cost almost on daily basis to make sure I am not going, uh, I am not utilizing the resources too much, so that my cost might get overrun. And we're going to understand what is overrun and underrun in a few slides. Most probably you will get an idea as you might have heard this word overrun. Overrun is like you have cost limit of around $1 million, and currently you're trying to utilize the cost beyond it. So it's basically destined for a cost overrun. And in this way, we keep managing our cost on daily basis. And that's how even the experts, the financial controllers helps us out, and they keep monitoring these costs on almost daily basis from their end also. And that's why these financial controllers are basically kind of financial experts. They are good in the project cost management, or what you can say, long-term cost management. And these long-term cost managements keeps us helping day in day out to make sure we are well within our boundaries to use the said cost or estimated cost earlier, and keep within those boundaries rather than using any reserve. Okay, does anybody have any question on estimate cost? Yesterday we gone through each and every of these inputs, tools and techniques and input, so I'll not repeat the whole thing. But yes, I believe there were some points which I believe to be stressed out, to be mentioned with a bit of stress on them. That's why I've explained to you again. Anybody have any questions on project cost management, estimate cost, process flow?
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Let's take a step further here, determine budget. Now, in determining budget, this is the jugglery basically what we do. In terms of determining budget, I need to determine budget in terms of, as we discussed. I've just discussed one point, senior resource, junior resource. If you go for a senior resource, there could be the added cost. If you go for a junior resource, well, the schedule might get extended because junior resource takes a bit of more time than a senior resources to do the same work, because of the maturity, because of the learning curve, because of the understanding of the various other aspects of the project as well. So this is the balancing act or a jugglery we do throughout our project. And these basically based on mostly the experience. So the better you experience, the better you can determine budget. The tools here are basically the cost aggregation. I try to do a cost aggregation across the project so that I'll understand in which step I'm trying to basically, running on the edge. And whenever you plan your sprint, you'll understand in depth. Like I was supposed to use a 600K, limit on this sprint, but I'm still, overburning by 640, 660 or something like that sort. And how do you calculate this? Scope, schedule, resources. These three entities give you a cost. And matured, project management tools like Microsoft Project Management, Primavera, Jira, these give you these cost lines very clearly. And they also denote it with the color red or escalation colors wherever you are going overboard with the planned cost, and we'll understand what is planned cost, budgeted cost, estimated cost, and everything. Okay, so here we need to determine a cost, and these are basically what you can say a cost limits. or cost baseline as we normally express this. So we have a range of cost where I should utilize cost better than this and less than this. So something like cost should be better than 550K but less than 660K or something like that. So I have to play around within this limit as far as the sprint planning, the additional sprint planning, additional resource request and onboarding as well. The resource cost starts whenever resource onboards in the sense joins your project. It can be something like laptop, desktop. They have their overall what you can say uh, cost with depreciation on all those things, but still the costs get attached to a project whenever you procure these new server, new desktop, new laptops, and so on and so forth. And similarly, even when with the resources, if you are requested for mid level resources, their cost will be definitely bit less than the cost of senior resources. And this way, I try to minimize the cost burden on my project. And even if there's a day extra needed for, let's say, fast tracking or something, that day or the cost of that additional day also get appropriated or aggregated throughout my sprint. Of course, that extra day cost will also get added to your sprint or your project, so that whatever you do in terms of resource working, let's say weekend resource working, well, we are paying them salary, and of course, weekend working, generate some additional dues to these resources, right? So all such resources are also added or padded to your project cost, and this way we might go overboard in terms of the planned cost or some, in terms of controlled cost, and that's way I need to keep a keen eye on how I'm managing the cost at the actuals. And that's how these Microsoft projects, Primavera, Jira, these type of matured project management methodology help us day in, day out. And here, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to manage cost. Rather, I'm trying to manage the complete project in terms of scope, schedule, resources, and balancing out these three gives me an actual cost which I'm managing. Okay. Does anybody have any question on determining budget? There's a very thin difference between estimate cost and determine budget. Estimate cost is basically the estimation process. The determined budget is actually implementing those control limits to within your project plan. Okay, and that's how we do. Of course, we also do use tools like reserve analysis, historical information review, funding limit reconciliation, and financing. For any startup, financing is also another options where we might go to various financer to ask for the money to keep this project continuing. Normally, many organizations, in matured organizations, they won't start project till they have the complete finance available with them. But practicability of a startups where they have a little money and they want to go ahead with that. So right now, what they normally do, they normally keep financing throughout your project life cycle as well. Funding limit reconciliation talks about the daily cost audits we do. You can do a cost audit with project manager and financial controller. Two of you can do it effectively rather than having the complete team involved. Otherwise, normally we have a sprint review which also includes cost review as well. And we'll have a look at such reviews again as in process afterwards. But here, what we are trying to do, we are trying to determine the budget. So scope, schedule, resource gives me a cost, and I manage this cost within the control parameters given by my organization. So that's what we call funding limits, which are given in the quality processes of my organization. And quality processes is the storage where I get all those templates, all those policies and rule books which normally I follow throughout my project management life cycle. Does anybody have any questions on determine budget as of now?
No, sir.
Please go through the PM book and read chapter 7, right? Yes, read chapter 7, which is on the cost. This is one of the most important chapter in terms of how do we manage project on the ground on daily basis. Of course, you manage the project on the ground on daily basis, but what are the things we normally observe? What are the things we normally control on daily basis? It's clearly given in a PM book, and this is what we have discussed also. But just to make sure you are in line with actual PMP, PMI processes, please do read those chapters. You have audio files also with you. If you don't like reading, please listen to those audios so that you'll understand how this effective cost management can be achieved with whatever project management tools we have. Okay. Now let me take you to this slide called project management. Project management. Here we are trying to understand different budgeted components. So how do we budget? Or normally, if you look at the conceptual budgeting process, this is how it actually looks like. So you have a project budget in the sense whatever client is paying you. Now, as far as organizations goes, they have their profit margins, they have their overhead costs like sales department, resource management department, this department, that department, the building cost, the maintenance cost, and all those things. So if you look at all these things which are get deducted as a management reserve, and this management reserve is in the vicinity of 20 to 30%, and that's a overall industry generalization. Your organizations might have at 22, might have at 35 as well, because depending upon the organization's way to assign the planned cost to a project differs a bit, and that's why there's a bit of approximation here in terms of management reserve versus cost baseline. Now, cost baseline, this is the maximum limit your project can stretch to. You can't go beyond. If you are going beyond these, you have to stop the project, because you are unnecessarily incurring loss for a project, for a product, solution, or services. So you need to stop it immediately. Then we have control account. So control accounts, that's the total budget which can be stretched out to the extreme limit, and that's why we have financial controllers who work within these budgets for a given projects. Now let's understand contingency reserve. Normally, even contingency reserve are something from 15% to 20%. In some organizations can be 30% as well. And the work package or cost estimates are basically the estimates where we work in terms of management thought process. So whenever as a project manager, you look at a total project cost, this is the project cost you are looking at, work package cost estimate. And then even within that, I have some contingency for the scenario like Corona. So we normally work from home. So there's a efficiency decrease. So there are padded costs. And like such scenarios, the EEFs and OPAs, I normally have these activity contingency reserve. This is anything from 15 to 30. Normally, all these contingent reserves are in the vicinity of 15 to 30%, depending upon your organizational quality policies. They normally get applied to your project. So when you reduce, let's say 20, 20, 20, so normally you have deducted roughly about 35% of the percentage already. So whenever you normally bid for a project, solution, services, the actual cost to be implemented your project is at around this 65%. So you have to manage your project within the 65% of the actual budget cost. Try to do this maths. This 65 can be 66 or 66.5, depending upon your organizational quality policies and processes. But that's what you have to use throughout your project, and this includes all those organizational assets cost, resource management overheads, the flat or aggregated cost for resources, and so on and so forth. Okay, now let me play a good video to you here. He's trying to share all these detailed costs in terms of defined segmentation, and we'll understand in a depth. And this is in line with the PMP project cost management processes and various input, outputs, and tools. And this way we will understand how we manage these budget components, and then we'll step into how do we estimate cost in terms of with the formulas, in terms of the actual figures. How do you normally play within these activity cost estimates? These are the activity costs for exact activity you have planned in Microsoft project. So whenever I plan, I need to install full biometric at so and so offices. So these activity cost must be within the range which is allowed to me by this activity cost estimate. The others are all reserved. And even these activity cost estimate, I need to sit with financial controller to get it approved for my project. Rather than approved, I need to get his agreement, his or her agreement, to make sure I'm following the company's quality policy in terms of my financial cost budget management. And that's how I do it for each and every organization. Okay, let me play this good video where we'll understand how this cost management actually reflects on a day-to-day basis or